Beautiful builds don't start with machines, they start with a flow between them. We've all been there. We've rushed over from Satisfactory Calculator with a list of machines in hand, and then we plop them down in one big grid, and then try to make the building work around them. But if you want beautiful architectural factories, you need to do the opposite. Today, we're diving into layout and flow, part of the process that turns a random collection of machines into a structure with rhythm, intention, and personality. So sit back, grab a drink. This is Satisfactory Design School. Before we dive in, if you haven't seen episode 1 yet, I highly recommend watching it first. It's all about reading the terrain and choosing a location that naturally inspires your build. And just a reminder of what this series is really about, I'm not teaching a strict checklist or a perfect meta layout. I'm teaching a mindset, a way of approaching design that unlocks your creativity, because I truly believe that everyone has the ability to build something beautiful. Sometimes we just need the tools and a little bit of encouragement to get going. Now that the terrain has given you your boundaries and direction, it's time to finally place your first machines. But don't just spam foundations and fill them up. Place machines in small, intentional groups based on function. Slide them around, rotate them, create breathing room. Let your layout respond to the terrain choices you made in episode 1. The goal is flow, not efficiency. Flow between groups, flow for belts, and flow for the player moving through your build. This is where the project truly begins to take shape. The biggest difference between a boring factory and a beautiful one often comes down to elevation. I always take each production chain and break it into meaningful chunks, then I'll physically move those chunks around the terrain, almost like puzzle pieces, until something just clicks. Raise certain groups, lower others, create terraces, steps, platforms, and suspended decks. You're sculpting the land now, not fighting it. Elevation gives your build depth, personality, and visual rhythm. The same principles behind the Aetherian and the Orion, where vertical layering completely define the aesthetic. This is where most people go wrong, including myself. If your build needs a train station, hypertube hub, main entrance, a power spine, or a central storage, or a sink, which I forget all the time, place it now. Big structures are the anchors of your factory, and everything else should wrap around them, not the other way around. Your large shapes define the personality, and the machines fill the gaps. Now that the clusters and big structures are both placed, it's time to think about flow, both for materials and for the player. Where do the belts enter the build? And where do they leave? Are we showcasing any belts as a feature? How does a player move through the build? This is something I think about before placing too many machines, because movement paths often define the character of a factory just as much as the architecture. Movement becomes a design tool when you use it intentionally. A staircase or an elevator shouldn't just be a functional afterthought. They can become major visual anchors. A grand staircase can act like the spine of the whole build. A tall lift can draw the eye upward and give the build a sense of scale. A ramp between levels can act as a natural transition zone. In episode 1, we talked about reading the terrain. This is a natural continuation of that. If the land dips or rises, let that dictate how the player moves through it. If machines are layered, give the player a satisfying path through those layers rather than teleporting them around. Movement isn't just practical, it's part of the player's experience and part of your building's personality. If it feels natural to walk through, it'll make your factory feel more alive instantly. Something I'm always looking for in every single factory, big or small, is visual interest from every angle. When I'm placing machines or sketching the frame of a building, I'm constantly asking myself, what does the player see when they walk around this corner? Is there a reveal moment when you come up a ramp? Does this window look out onto something worth looking at? Does a walkway subtly? Nah, still sounds wrong, I'm not having it. Oh god. Anyway, can a walkway or a wall frame a mountain, a river, or another structure? Sightlines are one of the most powerful and one of the most overlooked tools in satisfactory design. You can use them to guide the player's movement without ever placing a sign, highlight your favourite parts of the build, and create beautiful moments naturally, just by how something aligns. If you ever feel like your factory looks flat or messy, it's often because the sightlines aren't doing any work for you yet. The goal is to make the player want to keep walking because the next angle always looks interesting. Before locking anything in, take a moment to plan the invisible part of every factory, the belt runs. You'll want vertical space between floors, and I often leave a 4-meter gap for constructor floors and a 8-meter gap for assembler floors. And I haven't actually got to building manufacturers yet, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. You might also need gaps behind walls, dedicated belt corridors, and this is the point where you also decide whether you want your belts to be completely hidden or fully showcased as a feature. There's no right choice, but it's super important to think about it now. At this point in the build, you've probably got 7 platforms floating around with machines on, and that's absolutely perfect. At this stage, I'll outline key walls, rough in the roof flow, add any early columns, and start creating visual rhythm. Your frame should feel like a promise of what the build will become. And that's where we'll pause for now. We've gone from raw terrain to a plan to the first meaningful foundations of your layout. This is where the factory starts to take shape, not visually, but structurally. This is where your ideas begin to breathe. And if you want to see me put these principles into practice, then my full Satisfactory series is linked down below. Thank you so much for watching, thank you for the support, and thank you for being part of this little creative corner we're building together. If you have any questions, want feedback, or just want to share progress, hop into the Discord. With all out of the way, I really can't wait to see you in the next episode. Ginge out.